General Hospital spoilers reveal that one of the most emotionally staggering revelations leading up to the much-anticipated wedding of Willow and Drew is the unexpectedly intense and deeply transformative bond that has begun to blossom between Willow and young Scout. While the focus in Port Charles has largely been on whether the wedding will take place without sabotage from lurking enemies like Nina or Liesel, few could have predicted that the true emotional epicenter would come from a child longing for safety and connection after unspeakable loss. Scout, still grieving the death of her mother Sam, has been carrying a quiet, invisible weight, a need for reassurance, for nurturing, for someone to look at her not with pity or politeness, but with the unconditional care that only a mother can provide. And now, in the days before the wedding, Scout has begun to look to Willow as the person who might be able to fill that role, not as a replacement for Sam, but as a presence capable of anchoring her emotionally in a world that suddenly feels colder and more fragile. What makes this development so shocking is how quickly and fiercely Scout's emotions have surged forward. She isn't merely accepting Willow out of obligation or politeness. She is beginning to truly want her there, in her life, in her home, in her future. This desire, so pure and so urgent, has opened the door to a wave of new interactions between the two that are anything but superficial. Their conversations have deepened. Their silences have become more meaningful. Scout, previously quiet and guarded, is now speaking more freely with Willow, asking her questions not just about the wedding but about what comes next, about whether she'll be there when Scout comes home from school, whether she'll be the one to say goodnight, whether she'll still be around if things get scary. These questions, asked in the soft and hesitant voice of a grieving child, have shattered Willow's emotional walls. She entered this engagement with Drew hoping for a fresh start, for healing, for something good after all the trauma she endured with her health and her own family. But she hadn't prepared herself for this, to be looked at not just as a woman getting married, but as the possible emotional lifeline for a child who has lost more than most people twice her age. Willow is now caught between her own hopes and the immense pressure of becoming something she's not sure she's ready for. Scout's eyes follow her every move with a mix of trust and expectation that Willow both cherishes and fears, because failure would mean not just breaking a promise to Drew, but devastating a child who already knows too much about abandonment and pain. This development is pushing the entire story into a more emotionally volatile direction. Willow isn't simply preparing to say, "I do." She's grappling with the knowledge that, whether she wants to or not, she is now part of Scout's healing journey. The lines between bride and mother figure have blurred in the most intimate, unexpected way, and every step closer to the ceremony amplifies the stakes. Scout has begun referring to Willow in ways that imply permanence. When you're here, after you move in, when we're a family. And while that should be heartwarming, it is instead deeply unsettling because it makes the possibility of something going wrong, the wedding collapsing, Drew pulling away, or Willow walking out, all the more traumatic for everyone involved. To make things more complicated, Scout has been actively drawing pictures, writing notes, and even practicing how to introduce Willow as her stepmother. These innocent acts of a child trying to build a bridge to a new future have created waves of guilt and emotional turbulence for Willow, who finds herself questioning whether she has the right to step into this space. Can she truly fill that void? What if she can't? What if she hurt Scout by trying? Or worse, by walking away? This situation, raw, delicate, and deeply human, is fast becoming one of the most gripping emotional arcs on General Hospital. For all the external drama surrounding the wedding day, it is this evolving relationship between Scout and Willow that threatens to redefine the entire event. This is no longer just about love between two adults, it is about the reconstruction of a broken family, the rebirth of trust, and the terrifying responsibility that comes with becoming someone's safe place in a world full of loss. What's perhaps most heartbreaking is how much Scout seems to be clinging to this possibility. In moments alone, she's been heard whispering to herself about what it might be like to have Willow make her lunch or read her stories or come to parent-teacher conferences. These fantasies, simple to an outsider, are everything to a child craving normalcy and comfort. And Willow, sensing this, is finding herself pulled deeper into an emotional vortex, where every decision she makes from this point forward could either build a foundation of love or cause irreparable damage. The situation is reaching a fever pitch. Drew has noticed the bond forming but has yet to fully grasp how profound it has become. He sees it as a sweet connection, a hopeful sign. But he doesn't yet realize that Scout's emotional well-being is now inextricably tied to Willow's choices, that this isn't just a new chapter, it's a complete rewrite of the entire book. And should the wedding falter, should the secrets, lies, or sabotage from external forces succeed in derailing it, the consequences will reach far beyond just the adults at the altar. In this fragile, shifting dynamic, Scout and Willow are both walking a tightrope of hope and fear. One is a child who has already lost too much. The other a woman trying to find her own place in a world of shifting loyalties and emotional minefields. Their bond, still forming, is quickly becoming the emotional heart of the wedding storyline. And that bond, powerful, unexpected, and filled with unspoken longing, might just be the most explosive part of what's to come. Because if this wedding fails, it won't just be a matter of vows unspoken. It will be the shattering of a child's fragile trust. And Willow, who never wanted to become anyone's replacement, might now be the only person capable of protecting Scout's heart, or breaking it. The question is no longer just whether Willow and Drew will marry. It's whether the emotional ties forming between a grieving child and a woman on the edge of transformation can survive whatever lies ahead. And as General Hospital fans brace for the fallout, one thing is clear, this story has gone far deeper, and far more dangerously, than anyone ever expected. In a moment destined to leave Port Charles breathless, Scout will present Willow with a wedding gift that no one could have anticipated, a deeply personal, heart-shattering token passed down from her late mother, Sam McCall. This is not just any keepsake. It is a legacy. A sacred relic of love, memory, and quiet sorrow, held close to Scout's heart ever since that fateful day months ago when Sam, knowing she might never return from the operating room, handed her daughter something more precious than words, a delicate, handwritten letter folded tightly inside a velvet pouch, sealed with Sam's signature in faded ink. Sam, fully aware of the risks as she prepared to donate her organs to save Lulu's life, gave the pouch to Scout with a single request, to deliver it to someone worthy when the time felt right. And now, Scout believes that person is Willow. As Willow's wedding to Drew looms large, and the weight of Scout's grief continues to quietly swell beneath her composed demeanor, this long-dormant legacy reemerges, adding a haunting emotional layer to a day already fraught with quiet tension and buried truths. The act of giving the pouch to Willow is more than symbolic, it's transformational. For Scout, this is her way of choosing Willow not only as a stepmother but as a spiritual heir to Sam's grace, intuition, and unyielding love. But the moment is not without its complications. Because with this decision comes an emotional reckoning Scout was not prepared for, a collision between the past she clings to and the future she's still trying to accept. The closer she comes to letting go of Sam, the more the ghosts of what was, and what could have been, begin to close in. This intimate, almost sacred gesture unlocks one of the most haunting emotional shifts yet. Scout is suddenly overwhelmed not just by love, but by fear, the fear of forgetting her mother, the fear of losing again. And the suffocating fear that if she gives this part of Sam away, she might lose the last thread binding them together. Willow, touched beyond words, instinctively understands the depth of the gift and the burden wrapped within it. But in receiving it, she also inherits a responsibility, not just to cherish what Sam left behind, but to honor the magnitude of Scout's grief, love, and unspoken expectations. Willow can no longer view herself as a simple figure in Scout's life. With that pouch in her hand, she becomes the custodian of Sam's final act of motherhood. For Scout, what started as a sweet offering becomes a psychological spiral. The very act of handing Willow the pouch brings memories flooding back, the sterile smell of the hospital, the tight hug Sam gave her, the sound of her voice whispering, "When you're ready." She wasn't ready then. She may not be ready now. And yet she's doing it, not because she's moved on, but because she wants to move forward. But with that step comes a new form of obsession. One rooted in guilt, fear, and emotional fragmentation. Scout begins questioning whether she's betraying Sam by letting someone else step into the light. Whether Sam would approve. Whether Willow is truly the right person, or simply the only one left standing. Meanwhile, Willow feels the weight of the pouch grow heavier by the hour. She reads the letter in private, only to find Sam's words filled with heartbreak, wisdom, and subtle instruction, an unspoken request to protect Scout, to nurture her, and to never let her feel alone in the world. Willow breaks down, because she's not sure she's capable of filling that void. She wants to. Desperately. But what if she fails? What if she lets Scout down, or worse? Tries to step into shoes that were never hers to fill? The fear begins to gnaw at her, turning what should be a celebration into an emotional crucible. Spinelli notices the shift in both of them, the way Scout has become quieter, more restless, clinging harder to routines and old photos of Sam. He warns Drew that Scout may not be as ready for this transition as she seems. Drew, torn between loyalty to Willow and his instinct to protect Scout, starts to see cracks in the foundation. The wedding, once a symbol of healing, is now layered with dread, as this mysterious gift from the past unlocks a future none of them fully understand. What was meant to be a quiet act of love has become a storm. The pouch, Sam's final gesture, has not only brought Scout and Willow closer, it has also shaken both of them at their core. Scout's attachment to Willow is now mixed with anxiety and obsession, her young mind wrestling with emotions far too large for her age. She begins waking from nightmares, asking if Willow will disappear too. She begins asking questions that no one knows how to answer. Did Mom know she wouldn't come back? Did she give me that pouch because she knew Willow would come? Was this all meant to happen, or is it a mistake? These are not the questions of a child at peace. They are the questions of someone clinging to meaning. Desperate to believe that loss leads to something greater, something safe. But if the wedding unravels, if chaos strikes as many predict, Scout could be left more shattered than ever. Betrayed not just by fate, but by the very people she tried to trust. The obsession grows deeper. She begins following Willow around, watching her more closely, trying to memorize her habits. Her laugh, the way she touches Drew's arm. She wants to believe that Willow is the right person, that she deserves the pouch. But part of her is terrified that she's wrong. This is the latest madness sweeping through Port Charles. Not a scandal of lies or violence, but one of emotional reckoning, legacy, and inherited grief. Scout's gift was meant to be an act of love. But love, when tangled with trauma, becomes something else entirely. Willow's hands shake when she holds the pouch now. Scout's eyes watch her with desperate hope. And somewhere in the silence between them, Sam's spirit lingers, waiting to see if her final message will bring peace, or unleash a new kind of storm. Because if Willow stumbles, or if this wedding falls apart, the consequences won't just affect her or Drew. They will tear through the life of a child who gave away the last piece of her mother in the hope that someone would finally stay. And that, more than any scandal, more than any secret, is what could truly change everything. Willow had always believed that the path ahead was finally clearing, that after enduring relentless heartbreak, illness, and separation, she was finally on the verge of something pure, something healing. Her upcoming marriage to Drew was meant to be the beginning of that peace. But as she held Scout's precious wedding gift, the velvet pouch passed down from Sam McCall before her final surgery, everything began to unravel. Inside that pouch, Willow found not only a letter meant to carry Sam's enduring love for her daughter, but a haunting confession that shattered the fragile illusion she had built. Drew Kane, the man she was about to marry, was not who he claimed to be. The real Drew had died months ago on a remote island off the coast of Greece. And the man standing beside her in Port Charles was an imposter, someone wearing Drew's face, Drew's voice, Drew's history, but carrying none of the truth. The revelation knocked the wind from Willow's chest. Every memory, every kiss, every future plan suddenly rewrote itself into something twisted and terrifying. She read the letter again and again, searching for any misinterpretation, any hope that Sam had been mistaken. But Sam, meticulous as ever, detailed her suspicions and even described covert DNA tests she had begun before her death, tests she never had the chance to finish. She warned that the man known as Drew had gaps in his knowledge, inconsistencies in his past, and no verifiable trail beyond his rescue. And now Willow knew why. She had fallen in love with a lie. But beyond the betrayal and confusion, something deeper had already taken root inside Willow, something far more dangerous and raw, the desire to become a mother again. Her bond with Scout had sparked something maternal in her. Something fierce and instinctive. The pain of being separated from Wiley and Amelia had left a wound that never truly healed. Scout had unknowingly reopened it. And now Willow found herself consumed by a longing she could no longer suppress. She wanted another child, not out of obligation, but out of a hunger for connection, for family. For permanence in a world that had taken everything from her. And yet, that yearning was now tangled in a nightmare. The man she thought would father her next child might not even be Drew at all. He could be a plant, a spy, a psychological weapon constructed by forces far beyond Port Charles. Willow began spiraling, her once orderly thoughts collapsing into a torrent of doubt and dread. How could she marry someone whose very identity was a question mark? How could she trust that the man who held her at night wasn't hiding an agenda far darker than she could imagine? Each interaction with Drew became laced with silent terror. She watched him closely, noting his expressions, his mannerisms, every slip in memory or strange behavioral shift. She tried to find the man she had loved in those eyes, but all she could see now was the mask. Worse still, her heart refused to fully disengage. Part of her still wanted it to be real, the love, the future, the hope for another child. And that internal conflict began tearing her apart. As Willow quietly investigated the truth behind Sam's letter, she confided in no one. Not Michael. Not Carly, not even Spinelli. The fear that she might tip her hand too early haunted her. If this man wasn't Drew, then exposing him too soon could put her and Scout in danger. But if she said nothing and went through with the wedding, she could be tying her life to a stranger. Or worse, to an enemy. Amid this psychological war, Willow's maternal longing only grew more urgent. Every time Scout reached for her hand or whispered about the wedding or left a drawing on her nightstand, Willow felt a jolt of protectiveness so intense it left her breathless. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about Scout. It was about legacy. It was about rewriting the tragic pattern of loss and betrayal that had haunted them both. But secrets have a way of cracking wide open, and the closer the wedding date came, the harder it became for Willow to maintain the facade. She started losing sleep. She flinched when Drew touched her shoulder. She grew distant even as she clung tighter to Scout. Her dual desires, to become a mother again and to uncover the truth, began to collide, creating a volatile emotional storm that no one around her understood. And then came the ultimate betrayal. Willow discovered that the imposter had accessed WSB files weeks before claiming to return to Port Charles. He had wiped records, manipulated contacts, and even forged psychiatric evaluations, all to recreate Drew's identity without suspicion. Willow knew then that this was not a coincidence or a mistake. This was a carefully constructed operation. Sam had been right. The real Drew had died on that island in Greece. And whoever this man was, he was using Scout, using her. And perhaps planning something far more sinister than anyone could predict. The horrifying truth didn't kill Willow's longing to be a mother, it intensified it. But now, her maternal instincts shifted into something more primal. It was no longer about starting a family with Drew. It was about protecting Scout from a predator in disguise. It was about ensuring that no other child, not Wiley, not Amelia, not a future baby, would grow up in the shadow of lies. With tears in her eyes and Sam's letter pressed to her chest, Willow began making plans. Plans for escape. Plans for confrontation. Plans for survival. She would not walk down that aisle. She would not let this farce continue. And she would not, could not, allow the name, Drew Kane, to be used as a weapon against the family Sam died protecting. What started as the desire to become a mother again had turned into something much darker, the need to destroy a lie before it destroyed her. And with the ghost of Sam whispering from the past and Scout silently depending on her for guidance, Willow knew there was only one path forward, and it wouldn't end in wedding bells. It would end in reckoning. Willow had always believed in quiet strength, the kind that bloomed in silence, the kind that endured even when everything around her was falling apart. But now, as her world twisted under the weight of Sam's letter and the realization that the man she was about to marry was an imposter, Willow found herself reaching deep into a new kind of strength, fierce, maternal, and unrelenting. Because while her own heart was breaking, there was one truth she could no longer ignore: Scout was in danger. And only Willow could protect her from the shadows quietly growing inside their home. That terrifying clarity gave birth to one of the most powerful shifts in Willow's life, the transformation from grieving survivor to determined protector. And it was this shift that cemented a new, unshakable bond between her and Scout. Ever since Scout had entrusted Willow with Sam's final keepsake, the letter that revealed the horrifying truth, something had changed between them. No longer simply Drew's fiancé and his daughter, they had become something far deeper, two souls connected by shared loss, shared hope, and now, shared danger. Scout didn't fully understand the magnitude of what she had given Willow, but she sensed something was wrong. She began to cling closer, asking more questions, watching Willow with an intensity far beyond her years. And Willow, instead of shielding her with half-truths and distractions, began preparing her, slowly, gently, for what was to come. Willow started by creating emotional safety, reassuring Scout that no matter what happened, she would never be left alone. She spoke to her with a quiet honesty, never naming the threat outright, but making it clear that she could always come to her, always tell her the truth. And as Scout's walls lowered, so did her fears. The girl who had once felt lost in the aftermath of Sam's death was beginning to find something solid in Willow, something maternal, yes, but also empowering. Willow was giving Scout more than comfort. She was giving her a voice, a sense of control in a world that had taken so much from her. But behind the gentle words and reassuring hugs, Willow was working fast. She had already begun documenting inconsistencies in Drew's behavior, his altered memories, his changing speech patterns, his inability to recall key events from his past with Scout. She stored copies of Sam's letter in 3 hidden places, including one Scout helped her choose. She contacted Spinelli through a secure channel, requesting background checks and biometric verification. She began packing emergency bags, one for her and one for Scout, just in case things escalated before the wedding could be stopped. This wasn't just emotional preparation. This was a tactical operation. Willow was building a fortress, brick by brick, around Scout. And she would burn down the world before she let anyone harm that child. The transformation wasn't lost on those around her. Carly noticed Willow's sharper edge. The way she scanned rooms, the way she now kept her phone always within reach. Michael grew suspicious of her sudden evasiveness. But Willow remained calm, strategic, biding her time, knowing that every second mattered. Because the man they all called Drew was starting to suspect something too. He had noticed the way Scout stayed closer to Willow now. The way Willow had begun avoiding intimate conversations, dodging questions about the wedding details. He saw it, the unraveling. And for the first time, he seemed afraid. What neither he nor the rest of Port Charles realized was how far Willow was willing to go. Her connection with Scout had grown into something immovable, a bond forged in grief, truth, and the raw need for safety. It was no longer just about surviving this deception. It was about reclaiming control. About rewriting the narrative before Scout became collateral damage in someone else's twisted game. And Willow, despite the tears she shed alone at night, despite the ache in her chest every time she looked at the man she once loved, was ready. When the moment came, and it would come soon, Willow would expose the truth. Not with drama, not with chaos, but with absolute certainty. She would stand in front of everyone at the wedding if she had to, hold up Sam's letter, and tell the world that Drew Kane was dead, and that the man wearing his face had been manipulating them all. She would do it with Scout by her side, holding her hand, showing the world that this wasn't just about romance or betrayal. It was about a child who deserved the truth. About a mother who had died trying to protect her daughter. And about a woman who had finally found her voice through the bond she never expected to have. The road ahead would not be easy. Willow knew the fallout would be severe. There would be questions, investigations, danger. But none of that mattered anymore. She had found her purpose, not in the fantasy of a perfect marriage, but in the undeniable truth of a child's trust. Scout had given her more than Sam's legacy. She had given her a reason to fight. And now, Willow was ready to do just that, swiftly, fearlessly, and with everything she had. Because in saving Scout, Willow was saving herself. And that was a battle she refused to lose.